understand these things. Terrible.
Have you been told what your release date is?
Release. The guards, they tell me I will never be released. I think they are right.
If you are released, are you going to go back home?
I cannot go home. My neighbor, the Shiite Ali, he has taken over my house. He uses my wife as a servant, and my daughters as armchairs. I cannot go. I have no home. I am now a citizen of the world, a refugee of the world. I have no one. What country am I in now? I don't know. They blindfold me, load me on the plane. I don't know where they take me. Someday they will throw me away.
Thank you, Mr. Habibi. That's all the questions, Your Honor.
I do have one question for Mr. Habibi.
Yes.
So you say you can't go home, you don't know when you'll be released. What are your thoughts about your condition?
Nothing. I am staying on the bottom of the shoe of the world. It's scraped off on the curve. Where would I go? Who would accept me now? Everyone thinks I am their enemy. I am no one's enemy. I'm Ahmed Habibi, the friendly cab driver. I have nothing.
Thank you. You are excused. I will say that the purpose of the courts is to do the people's business, to bring justice to the people, and we will find a way to bring justice to Mr. Habibi. That is beside the point in this case. We're still going to carry on with the triumph of the people versus George W. Bush. And I now ask the prosecutor to make their closing statement.
As I've proven here, George Bush is definitely guilty of murder. He falsely declared that Iraq and Saddam Hussein were hoarding weapons of mass destruction. And he implemented the new policy of the United States administration where we kidnap and then send to civilians what they randomly decide as guilty terrorists to other countries and begin the torture process, and they send them country to country, which specializes in different torture tactics, and eventually they end up in Guantanamo. So I say to ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to find Mr. Bush guilty and sentence him to murder.
Thank you, ma'am. The defense, your closing statement.
Yes, thank you very much. President Bush stands here being accused of extraordinary rendition, enhanced interrogation, indefinite detention, and spying on Americans. Let's break down each of the charges, shall we? Extraordinary rendition. This is really, at its heart, a cultural exchange. Accused terrorist from country A is taken to country B by us, country C, and often taken to country D and E as well. Countries that they never in their wildest dreams would ever have had a chance to travel to and see. And it's also a cultural exchange in the sense that our security apparatus gets to work intimately with the security apparatuses in places as far-flung as Egypt, Morocco, Romania. We learn so much from each other. You know, we've really had the waterboarding thing down since the Spanish-American War. But beating people with rods on the soles of their feet, that's a Turkish thing. We learned when we worked with the Turks. I mean, it's really great. Our guys go over there, they learn some words of the language, they eat some of the food. Those people get to find out why we Americans are called the friendly people. It's really a great thing. And also, it's about building relationships. You know, we are trying to develop relationships with people in the field in these countries that we're operating in. So, for instance, let's imagine there's a fellow named Ali, who's a Shiite who lives in a neighborhood with one Sunni family in Baghdad. He doesn't like the Sunni family, and the Sunni fellow is named Ahmed Habibi, a cab driver who hasn't done anything for anybody, but he does have a nicer house than Ali. Let's imagine that Ali is resentful. Ali calls up our security apparatus and tells us that he's a terrorist. Now, we're trying to build a relationship with Ali. Ali is someone we value. He's somebody in the field. So it's a shame that Mr. Ahmed Habibi gets the nasty end of the stick, but heads have to roll to achieve what we're trying to achieve, which is a great relationship with somebody. So Ahmed gets a tour of all these exotic places, and Ali is somebody that we can count on because he knows that he can count on us. So that's important. Now that's the first thing. Enhanced interrogation. Now it is true that torture is a terrible way of getting actual information from anybody. But it's a great way of getting people to say exactly what you wanted to say. So while we're waterboarding people and keeping them up nights and depriving them of any sensory input, we're able to get them to confess to any kind of crime we want. And what's nice about that is it's about saving the face of Ali, our friend back in Baghdad. What if we were to let Mr. Ahmed Habibi out, and because he's innocent, it would look very bad for Ali. He would be branded alive. But by getting Mr. Ahmed Habibi to confess to just anything we could possibly think of, Ali feels validated, and it's a winning relationship. And, we know he's not a terrorist. Ahmed knows he's not a terrorist, but by the time we're done with him, he's going to confess to the fact that he sunk the Titanic and has killed the Archduke Ferdinand. So, let's talk about indefinite detention. Here's the thing. We need to keep Guantanamo going. If we were to close that down, the Cubans would spread their godless communism to even more land. We just can't let that happen. But the other thing is, after what we've done to Ahmed Habibi, if he were to get out, and he were to tell people about what happened to him in Egypt and Morocco and Romania, and then at Camp X-Ray, Guantanamo Bay, it would be very, very adverse to the brand that is the United States. We can't afford to let that happen. And in fact, it's actually in everybody's best interest, because Mr. Habibi, if he were to be sent home, imagine his family's trying to watch Iraq's Got Talent, and Mr. Habibi is in the corner keening and wailing and moaning and crying and shaking. They're not going to be able to enjoy anything. Everybody's trying to sleep at night, the sight of sound, and he's shrieking. Really, it just will make everybody a little harsh there, mellow, in such a bad way. So I think this is really, let's keep the status quo. He's doing fine where he is. And the one other thing is spying on Americans. The fact is, the best way to prevent terrorist acts is merely to use good old-fashioned police work. However, by getting you folks to queue up at the airport, at the X-ray, patted down, we can cultivate an atmosphere of fear so you won't even blink when we take away more of your civil liberties. And so it's kind of important because it's not really, we're not monitoring your cell phone use and your library books because we're really trying to catch terrorists. We're doing it because Pfizer wants to know what your blood cholesterol is. And Eukanuba wants to know if you've got a new puppy. And that's where all this information is going. We're not really looking for terrorists. So this is really about the American economy, and everyone knows the American economy needs a boost right now. So there can be no doubt that Mr. Bush's administration did all of these things. But really, were they really crimes or great deeds? A not guilty verdict will send a very powerful message that Mr. Bush doesn't deserve our approbation and punishment, but instead our appreciation and praise. I hope you'll do the right thing and acquit my client.
Sir. You heard the charges. The defendant is charged with extraordinary rendition, torture, indefinite detention, and spying on Americans. You've heard statements from both the prosecution and defense. You've heard from witnesses. Given evidence and testimony, very compelling on both sides. I now ask the jury to carefully consider the evidence given, to retire, and to consider the verdict. Mr. Foreman? You need a mic for this?
That's okay. And you guys are the jury? You're the people in the jury?
Now we are people are going to do the jury. We're going to take a temperature check on whether you guys think he should be found guilty of the charges that he's being accused with or not guilty. We'll take one for guilty. We'll put your fingers in the air if you think he's guilty.
Off with his hat.
Do we have to vote on not guilty?
He gets his credit. Guilty? What are you? He's a patriot. He did this for you.
I'm sorry, I think this is a paid officer. Can you somebody explain my ID?
Order in the court.
Dangerous minority. Wait a minute. This is oppression. This is oppression.
Okay, so can we come back to the judge and give him a verdict? We have a verdict?
So how do you say?
Your Honor, the jury finds the defendant guilty as hell.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
President Bush, if you've been found guilty by this jury, we remand you to the custody of the bailiff, and we will come back at a time to consider an appropriate sentence for you. And I think the date of that sentencing will be April 1st.
He's too early to do time. It's wrong.
Thank you. Please escort the president out.
Walk of shame! Shame! Shame!
On behalf of defense, I have to say I'm a little disappointed with all of you. However, anyway, we're very disappointed, but you know, here's the thing. So the puppet was taken into custody, but I want to assure you that the hand that goes up the puppet's bottom easily can find more puppets. And we're going to continue to do that, so don't worry, the system will not fail you. You can count on us to continue everything the way we've been doing it. Are we ready to sing a song, folks?
Oh, my goodness. What?
You were singing later.
No, we're singing now. In between. Are you ready?
Okay, no, I'm not ready.
All right, well, let's talk for a minute. I want to talk to you about there's a sacred relationship between the corporate lobbyists and the politicians who live in their pocket and it is inviolable. And which is why I'm urging you folks not to support this whole Move to Amend campaign that's going on. You know, we the billionaires are the smallest, most beleaguered minority in the country. And if you, the 99.99 ivory so pure percentage of people, were to raise all of your voices, that's 312 million people, that's a very loud sound. However, there's only about 408 of us. If we were to raise our voices, it's a little tiny squawk. So, thankfully, the Supreme Court of the land has recognized that money is in fact speech. And so we have other ways of raising our voice and demonstrating our enthusiasm. And we're able to aggregate all of our aspirations and dreams in the form of corporations. So we're very, very lucky and we're privileged in that our nation has recognized our right to speech, our right to express ourselves. And if you were to take that right away, it would be a step backward for America to take away the civil rights of a beleaguered minority, a hated minority, a minority that suffers approbation and slings of its fellow Americans. So we are urging you not to support this movement. A lot of you people don't know this, but I don't know if you know, but Clarence Thomas is actually a poet. Number 3? Well, she's singing on number 3. Oh, we get a number 2.
What about the Occupy movement?